Do we have any faculty or career advisors who are willing to go first?
I'll go. Hello, everyone. My name is Lisa Knapp. I'm a career advisor in the Career Center. And my area of focus is with integrated studies students, as well as education, as well as communications and the arts. So yeah, if you want to set up an appointment through the Career Center, that would be with me.
I can go next. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Danny Lauer. I work here in the Career Center as well as the coordinator of adult and alumni career resources. So my role in the office is to find out what you all as adult learners have a need for in the career space and create accessible resources for you to hopefully aid you in your goals. So thanks for being here.
I can go next. Hi, everyone. I'm Santos Ramos. I am a faculty member in the School of Interdisciplinary Studies. In addition to teaching in the INT and BAS programs, I also teach courses in Latino Studies and Digital Studies. I am currently directing the two BAS majors that were mentioned, and I am serving as the instructor for BAS Practicum, which I'll be talking a little bit about.
Hi, everyone. I'm Justin Pettibone. I'm the Assistant Director of School of Interdisciplinary Studies. I'm also the former Internship and Practicum Coordinator for Integrative Studies, and I'm filling in for my colleague Denise Gurish, who is the current director of those. But I look forward to talking with all of you about this.
Hey everybody, my name is Nick Woodward. I'm the Director of Advising for the College of Computing. And the College of Computing is the college that houses the Web Design and Development Bachelor of Applied Sciences program.
I did not go, so I could go next. My name is Anna Kristiniak. I work in the Center for Adult and Continuing Studies, so I advise all three of our adult degree completion programs that we work with.
I'll go next. My name is Jenny Dubois, and I am the Student Services Coordinator at the Grand Valley office on the Jackson College campus. And I advise potential transfer students, students that are interested in the BAS program, which we will be offering here hopefully in the winter, and integrative studies.
I'll go next. My name is Brian Massiter. I'm also with the Center for Adult and Continuing Education, and at this time, I'm advising prospective students.
Okay, if everyone who's wanted to make an introduction has done so, then let me hand this over to Justin to get us started talking about these practical coursework options.
Thanks, Anna. So let me preface this by saying I'm a little under the weather, so if my voice gets a little shaky, I apologize. But a requirement for integrative studies majors is to have a practical application of the learning that you do. And so the way that we have organized this is through these two different options, the INT 490 internship class and the INT 491 practicum class. So each of these are spaces where you apply the learning that you've done throughout your degree, focusing on the specific things in your area of focus. And it allows you to take the learning in a customized way into a different setting. So with the internship, it's location based at a specific internship site where you're working with the people at this organization. With a practicum, you're developing a research question, working with a faculty member directly to determine the scope of your research question, how you're going to proceed in pursuing that over the course of the credits, and what you're going to deliver at the end of it. So I'll let Santos fill in as far as the BAS information since it's on the slide. Oh, Anna, I'm sorry. Could you advance this? Yeah, I'm looking at my other screen. I saw the next slide. I don't know if Santos, you want to jump in and mention BAS since it is here?
Yeah, so BAS practicum is a requirement, particularly for the leadership and business fundamentals major and the professional innovation major. So I'll go over some of the logistics and give some kind of concrete examples of the types of projects that students have done in the past.
Thank you. Could you go to the next slide, please, Anna? Okay. So regardless of which route you take, the internship or practicum for INT, the requirement is 2 credits. So, most of our classes in I think all of the classes that we offer in INT are generally 3 credit classes. So this one's a little bit different. So that's something to keep aware of. Each credit hour is going to be the equivalent of 50 hours of work. So a 2 credit internship means, you should be interfacing with the internship site at the organization where your internship is housed for 100 hours. Sometimes folks, in talking with the internship site, they say, oh, we really want you here for this amount of time. And it makes sense to have more credits because that fits the needs of the organization better. That's fine. We can do up to 6 credits for an internship. 6 is the maximum, so that would equate to 300 hours. Those are pretty rare. I think mostly students will do, the advisors can maybe correct me, but I think mostly these are 2 or 3 credits is the norm for these. Sometimes students have a really practical reason for wanting to do 3 credits because that gets you to full-time status, things like that. So there's a lot of different reasons why you might want to do more than 2 credits. If you do more than 2 credits, we can apply the additional credits to your area of focus in the integrative studies major. So if you need something to add to the area of focus or even to the integrative and contextual electives, there are places to plug those in. So yeah, I think I covered this slide. Oh, the thing I didn't mention is that it is a way to go more in depth on the area of focus in your major, whether that's based on a certificate or micro-credential or you're doing a design your own. But it allows you to go more deeply into whatever the area of emphasis for your major is. Okay, could you go to the next one, please? Thank you. So most of the time students will take this towards the ends of their degree program, just because I think that's because there's not a prereq and it's kind of just like this oddball thing that, you can do it anytime. So you don't really have to look at when is the schedule. So I think that it kind of goes to the back of people's minds because of that. That's fine. You can take it at any point though. It can be particularly helpful with INT 491 since that is a research-based class. If you're able to do a little planning and situate it in between when you do INT 301 and INT 495, I think conceptually that makes some good sense if it's possible, because INT 301 is about, it's the research methods class where students really lay the groundwork for doing their final capstone project or thesis work. And so in the middle, if we can put the INT 491 in there, so you learn about research methods, you do a research plan for what you're going to carry out in INT 495. A lot of times students want to do things like, conduct a survey, do some primary research, get IRB approval for something that they're working on. It's really hard to do those in a 6-week class. And so if that is something that you're interested in, if we can situate INT 491 in between them, that can give us some space so that students are able to, make those things happen and then use their own primary data for their project or thesis in the 495. So yeah, it can be at any point, but usually towards the end is when people take it. We typically do not have the INT 490 and 491s occur in a 6-week time period like we do with the LEADS format courses. It's just too much to cram in, especially since it is highly individualized. Trying to do all of the stuff that you lay out in your work plan or your internship plan, it's too much. And often when you're doing an internship and working with a site, the time that they say, oh, we want you here from this period to this period, it doesn't line up neatly with the Grand Valley semester. And so there is a lot of flexibility. It's very common for students to not register for INT 491 at the start of classes, but to do it later on when they're actually starting that. So if you have a situation where it is going to be something that carries over from winter into spring, summer, or anything like that, talk with your advisor, talk with Denise Gurish, the Practicum internship coordinator, about those ramifications. But it's totally doable, and that shouldn't dissuade you from pursuing an internship if you think, oh, it's not going to fit within a semester. So could we go to the next one, please? Yeah, thank you. So one way to kind of separate the difference between 490 and 491 is to think about who your first point of contact is. So if you're doing work and you come up to a question, you don't know how to pursue your work further. If your go-to person is a site supervisor, someone at a workplace or an organization, that's a key hallmark of an internship. If the first person you go to is a faculty member with a question, that's a hallmark of this is a practicum. It's worth pointing this out because sometimes students will have projects that kind of, walk the line in between them. Like I had a couple of years ago, a student do a practicum where they were studying studying best practices for handling lab samples. So the student was doing something related to the workplace that they worked at. They worked in a medical lab of some sort. And they wanted to study, best practices for how to do this one particular technical part of their job. And so like that could be an internship because it is at a internship site and, the student has the people that they work for, but the student designed it as a practicum because they really wanted to go into the literature and the research about it. And so when they came up with the problem, like, how do I proceed? They went to me, the faculty member, to work that out rather than someone at the site. So, sometimes these things do sort of thread the line in between them, but, generally, like, who am I going to go to for help will be a good indicator of which side your project will fall on. Both, I think, as the slide says, are concerned with experiential learning, taking the things that you've learned academically and using it in a hands-on way, whether that's focused at an organization for an internship or focused on a research question in a practicum. Could we go to the next one, please? Thank you. So yeah, as I said before, 1 to 6 credits, 2 is the minimum that you need to graduate. So it's really rare that someone will do a 1-credit internship, but it typically involves being physically present at an internship site, going in and doing a job in a professional or community-based setting. Sometimes students have things that are built into their working lives. They're going to do a new role at work and they're going to use that as an internship. They got a new set of responsibilities at work and they're thinking, oh, can I use this as an internship? All that stuff totally works. Sometimes students will find an organization in their community where they want to volunteer sometimes and develop an internship out of that. Sometimes it's a professional apprenticeship, something like that, or a workplace mentorship. All those things are things that we commonly see in integrative studies for an internship. Next slide, please, Anna. Practicum, similarly, 1 to 6 credits. Again, 2 is the minimum, so it's really rare to have a 1-credit practicum. But this is focused on observing, documenting, and planning your research. There's some examples that are given here. Expanding on the work that you do in 301 is a very common thing. If you come to a research question at the culmination of 301 and want to get more in depth with it, collect some data that is going to take some time that you really can't do in a 6-week class in the LEADS format, in the capstone, in the INT 495. Like I mentioned before, if you want to get IRB approval, approval from our review board to make sure that your survey is, responsibly done and protects the survey participants, that takes time. It's a process that, all primary research has to go through to make sure that it's ethical. Professional development opportunities can be used for practicum, researching career and education pathways. I've had students research for practicum projects, business plans. They've got an idea for something that they want to set up after graduation, so they can use this to kind of game plan how they're going to do that. So yeah, we've got a few other examples here. Some can be more creative, as mentioned here. In the INT 495, the culminating work that you do in your capstone project is either a traditional thesis, which is for lack of a better term, like a research sort of paper, or you can do a more creative thing that your research goes into. And so the practicum can benefit either route if you're thinking about going either way here. Yeah, before we turn it over to Santos, one last thing to mention as far as like the nuts and bolts, like if you are considering pursuing a practicum, there is a research work plan that you'll fill out and submit to Denise Gurish, the Director of Integrative Studies, that lists out, what are the things that you want to do? What are the learning objectives that you want to do? So, that's a thing that there is some give and take on. So you'll submit that, it'll go to Denise, you'll have a dialogue, and, she'll ask some clarifying questions, she'll revise it, modify it. And then, once it's approved, then the permit is put in place so you can register and banner for the credits. For internship, there is online internship management software, IMS, where you'll put in your vital information, you'll put in the information about who's going to be your supervisor at the internship site. And then it also asks for what are the learning objectives going to be. Very often students will put what their duties at the internship are for that. And that's related to what you're going to learn, but it's a distinct thing. So a regular thing is to have students send their internship proposal back to students to say, your duties are important, but tell me more, what are you going to learn from doing these duties? So we don't need 1 million learning objectives with internships. I think 2, 3 is plenty. But then once that is approved in IMS and Denise gives it the thumbs up, then the process of putting the permit in place is activated, and then you can register. And then in either case, there is a Blackboard site. You do regular check-ins with the faculty member. There are progress checks, there are occasional meetings, how's it going? You can give feedback to the faculty member, this is how my internship is going, this is what I'm learning, or this is how my research is going, this is what I could use support on. So, it is a class in that regard, but it's not the same as your leads classes where there's like, a weekly module or things like that. It's more individualized check-ins, individualized reflections on how things are going, just to keep the faculty member on top of things so that they know how to support you. So that's my spiel for this, and I'll turn it over to Santos now. Thanks.
Thanks, Justin. So there's a lot of similarities between the INT practicum and the BAS practicum that I'll be talking about, but there's also some key differences here. So just to kind of scaffold a little bit, I'll start with what practicum, the BAS practicum, is and why we have it. Then I'll go over some logistics, and then I'll end by giving some concrete examples of work plans, which is a document all students need to complete in order to get their practicum approved. And then the process that Justin just described is pretty much similar for us. Once you complete that work plan, I'll see it and I can put in a request to get you the permit so that you can enroll in practicum credits. So what the BAS practicum is an opportunity for students to apply principles that you take from your emphasis in the BAS program and applying those to professional, public, or community settings. So it's also a unique opportunity, I think, for you to take lead on developing your own project that helps you to expand knowledge and or skills on a topic that you choose. So in that sense, it requires a lot of initiative from students because it totally depends on what your interests are and the kind of experience that you want to have. But then my role as director and as the current instructor for the BAS practicum, I'm here to help guide you through that process of first envisioning your project, coming up with a detailed sort of plan. So the first couple weeks of the semester in practicum, you're fleshing out the plan more. So you don't have to have everything figured out sort of starting out. But it does help to go into the semester with a general idea of what you want to do, and then to actually carry out that plan. So it requires some initiative from students, but you're also not alone. That's why we're here to help you. In terms of why we have this applied aspect to not only to practicum, but I think across BAS is because we want, after you graduate, for that not to be the first time that you're going through the process of applying some of those skills, some of those concepts that you engage with in your courses. So practicum is a great space for practicing that. How do I apply some of these things that I've been learning about? Or maybe you take that as an opportunity to learn some new skills or explore some new concepts. And how do you go about sort of applying that? So I said I'd give some examples of the work plan, but kind of to give you an example up front here, practicum can help you to develop knowledge about a particular concept. For example, one student in the past wanted to learn more about the environmental impact of certain chemicals that are used in the lawn care industry because that's his primary area of interest. And so the practicum project that he developed involved him creating a reading list about that topic. And that's knowledge that he was directly able to then use in his career, or has plans to. So his final product that he proposed as part of his project was to create a report where he's talking about the findings of what are the environmental impacts of these chemicals and strategizing on how might I be able to utilize this knowledge as I go forward in my career. So that's just one sort of example of the kind of thing that you can be doing. And your project doesn't have to apply that directly sort of your career. It can be more of a exploratory approach, conceptual approach, even creative approach if you'd like it to be. And so for BAS, we require 3 credits of the practicum. You can apply more, but most students will end up taking those 3 credits. And similarly, 1 credit equals to INT, 1 credit equals 50 hours of work on the project. And so that's helpful for just quantifying your time that you're going to be spending on this project. But I think it's also helpful to keep in mind when you're initially kind of envisioning your project in terms of scope, because you don't want to choose, if most of you are taking 3 credits, that's 150 hours. So you don't want to come up with a project that's so big, it's going to take way more than that. You don't want to come up with a project that's way smaller in terms of scope and sort of be struggling with finding things that to do with it along the way. So something useful to kind of keep in mind early on, I think, as well. Can we move to the next slide, please? And so the practicum focuses on planning, explaining, and developing meaningful ways to address complex problems or questions like that example I just gave. But some other examples might include developing an action plan of sorts, developing some kind of program or training or workshop. So the thing that you're developing is really pretty open-ended and can look like a lot of different ways. And again, enrollment in the practicum needs to be approved by the BAS director, who is me right now. So completing that work plan form. And I would say before completing the form, it's great to reach out to me and just shoot me an email and let me know what you have in mind. And I can help at any point in the process. If you have no idea what you want to do for practicum, we can have a conversation. We can either meet over Zoom, or sometimes we just hash it out via email, whatever works best for you, to come up with ideas. Some students reach out and they have a bunch of different ideas, and we kind of talk through how to narrow it down. So at any point in the process, and really the sooner the better, reaching out to me is a good idea, and I can help kind of get you prepared for that work plan. But let's take a look at a couple of examples, 1 or 2 examples of the work plan. So when you go to the work plan, it asks for some logistical information, but these 2 prompts that I pulled out are really kind of the meat of what you need to be developing for your proposal here. So the first prompt, what do you hope to learn from this practicum? Please list 3 to 4 specific items. This example, the student wrote, the skills arts nonprofit directors need, the role diversity, equity, and inclusion play in arts nonprofit organizations, and how to write grants. So you'll notice there's a few different things listed here in terms of some of these are skills. So, well, the first example I think is really an indication that this is an exploratory project in terms of wanting to find out more about a particular field, right? And then the second one that has to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion, maybe a little bit more conceptual. They're interested in certain ideas and want to learn more about those. And then the third one is more of a hard skill that they're kind of identifying. Here's something specific that I feel like I would like to learn more about to apply in this profession. And then the second prompt, do you have an idea for how you might apply your learning in practical, professional, or community settings? Do you need time to research and explore potential ideas? In most cases, I will encourage most students to include some reading component to the project that they're producing, because I think practicum is a great opportunity to do some of that work, even if it's a very applied kind of project. And so in this example, the response is, I would like to create a reading list of scholarly resources on these topics to learn more. I also think it would be helpful to find grant applications to analyze and better understand the process. As my final product, I will develop a mock grant proposal for a project related to art and diversity. So this is kind of listing out, well, what are the different how are you going to spend that 50 hours or 100 hours or 100 hours? What are you going to be doing, and what are you going to kind of be working towards? So It takes time to further develop your topic, to seek out scholarly sources, read through them, maybe produce some kind of writing about those sources. And then to also, and this is where it kind of gets more towards like the applied aspect, seeking out actual call for grant applications that exist in the real world. And then as a final product, doing a mock kind of written proposal, and going through that process can help to just be aware of what are they requiring for grant applications, what are the kinds of things I need to learn how to write, etc. So those are a few different elements of this is kind of a microcosm of what the overall project is going to look like. What does the learning look like? And then what is that kind of final product that you have to show for it? And in this case, it's a grant proposal. Can we go to the second example, please? And then a slightly different example for the learning objectives in this one, the student writes, learning different classroom management styles, how to improve as a teacher, and to expand my network as a teacher. And then for the second prompt, which has more to do with how are you going to kind of apply this, I want to talk with some current teachers about their approaches to teaching and to read sources on teaching styles. So I think that this first suggestion is really great and interesting in an applied sense of how to apply your project, sitting down and talking with other people sort of in the field that you're interested in as a great way to kind of support that learning objective of expanding your network as a teacher or whatever it is that you're sort of interested in. And so I think it's also important to distinguish here that this is different than proposing to create a research study, which is a more formal, which would be more of a formal kind of interview, and you're collecting data and really analyzing it in a particular way, which Justin talked about. That involves a whole different process of going through IRB approval. And so that if you are interested in something like that, probably reach out even sooner than something like this, which I think is great, is having informal conversations with people in the field. And then the student writes, maybe I could find an online teaching workshop or event to attend. So that's another great sort of approach to this, looking for real world sort of events or trainings that you could attend. And then they write, I will create a statement of teaching philosophy and a lesson plan for my final product. So just a different kind of example of the kinds of final products that you can be proposing. The learning objectives sort of set up broadly. What am I going to explore or learn about? And then you're kind of mapping out, how do I actually get there, at least a little bit. And again, the first couple of weeks of the practicum semester, you're asked to take these responses that you put in and expand it into a fuller proposal. And we kind of work from there. And that process looks a little bit different for every student. But again, so if you have particular ideas you want to talk about, please reach out, and I can share that link to the work plan document that everybody needs to fill out as well.
Justin, do you mind doing a little bit of a recap? Otherwise,
Yeah.
I'm happy to.
I was just looking at this, and I think I said some of this, but yes, as a recap, that's absolutely fine. So, yeah, I mean, it's always important to check in with your advisor as you're planning these things. They can help you with the planning, as far as like when you're going to fit it in your schedule, things like that. Also meeting with Denise Gurish, the INT program coordinator, internship practicum coordinator. Like Santos said, this is a collaborative process. When we submit the IMS form, when you submit the work plan, there's always meant to be dialogue. There's always meant to be support from the faculty member to make sure that what to expect, so that there aren't any surprises. And then, completing the paperwork, whether it is the IMS agreement, internship agreement, whether it is the practicum work plan, getting that submitted online to get the ball rolling. Making sure that you are clearly articulating not just what are you going to do, but what are you going to learn from these things? What are you going to take with you from the experience? And again, you don't need a ton of these. 3 or 4 is plenty. Sometimes students will just list things. I've had to work with students where we kind of pare it down, saying like, this is a lot. And yeah, and then the Denise will work with you to make sure that the permit is in place, that you have access to the Blackboard site, and then you're off and running. So yeah, that's the getting started steps.
Wonderful. So wanted to share just some available resources we have here through the Career Center, not just for your practicum and internship search and process, but also as your long-term career goals line up with your program. So some great links here. And Anna, are you planning to share the slides so they can link? Perfect. Yep. So you should be able to access all of these on our website. Just want to highlight our internship and job search tips. We have some great ways to kind of strategize and prepare for your job search and internship search. We know that it's a process and there's a lot of steps involved. So we want to make that as easy as possible for you and give you some tips around that. In addition, some resume guide and interviewing resources. We know that as you're gaining these experiences, your resume is going to be something you want to update and continue to add these new skills that you're learning and be able to articulate that well. And so our resume guide has a lot of great resources there to help you make those accomplishment statements, have some good action verbs, and create meaningful content to tell your story. And then we also have our podcast linked here. We have over 70 episodes on our podcast on a variety of different topics. So anything from job searching to, something more specific, and they're usually around 20 to 30 minutes. So if you're, wanting to learn something new in the career space and, have a little bit of a commute or going on that afternoon walk, pop in those earpods, and our podcast has some great things to share there. We also have a self-guided career exploration website that if you're thinking about changing your career, pivoting and doing something different, this is going to really be helpful and give you some great things to think about, some exercises you can participate in. And then wanted to give a plug for our adult learner career events and some of the things happening around campus and virtually to just connect you as an adult learner with faculty and staff on campus, and then other learners who are like you in this space. So definitely want to check that out. And I also want to invite Lisa Knapp, yes, to share some of her wealth of knowledge as well.
Yeah. So as your career advisor, I have 3 things I want to say about 3 things related to internship. So the first one is practicums are great experience. They will give you skills that are transferable into the workplace. So I'm not saying do this, not that. But as it relates to internships, 3 of the biggest benefits for the internship experience, one is you get to try something out. I thought maybe I wanted to work in ad and PR. I tried it. It wasn't a good fit. And so that was a successful internship because it helped me make a decision about my own career plan. So it's a place to try something out. It's a place to learn a new skill. Maybe you're doing career research and you see that there's a software that field values and uses a lot, and you have a chance to get an internship where you learn that skill. That would be a successful internship. And then finally, being an intern, I don't know what the actual number is right now. It's in the 80% of internships become jobs, not necessarily that your internship became your job, like it converted directly, but the connections that you make, the good reputation that you're building, that can lead into that transition post Grand Valley. So that's 3 benefits. 3 things about getting an internship that I think really helps people think about it differently because it feels kind of mysterious. And you'll see this in the internship and job search tips as well. But of our students, 75 to 80% that do internships identify a place that they want to intern. Like maybe they love Miller Knoll. And so they reach out to somebody at Miller Knoll, do an informational interview, learn about it, and then ask if they would consider taking an intern. So that's like student driven. You're figuring out where you want to go and then going after it. Or they hear about an internship from another student because Grand Valley students do so well. A lot of times an employer will say, are there any more of you that need this? And so students will refer each other. So ask your peers, where are you interning? What Was it a good experience? Is there a contact? Could you introduce me? And then finally, a lot of interns use personal connections. And so it's not uncommon for somebody to sit in my office and say, well, my dad has a buddy. And it's like, use that. You still have to do the work. You're still building the reputation. You're still reaping the benefits. So there was a family member or a close friend that opened the door. That is a good door to open if it fits your needs and goals. And then the third thing, when to connect with Career Center, right? As Danny shared, these are some great resources, especially knowing that you may have full days and not be doing this until the evening. It's wonderful to get online and get started with everything. But if you're still coming to a point, one, where you want just some additional support. One, we have drop-in hours in Allendale from 11 to 4 every single day. It's in STU 200. We have drop-in, is it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Danny? In
It is
Duval,
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Tuesday, Wednesday, 11 to 4. You can literally come in with your computer, your resume, your cover letter. You can have your job posting, and you can sit with a peer advisor or professional advisor and do bullet by bullet how to organize all of that. So let's say you get it started and then you come in, that would be a great use of your time. You can make an appointment. I make a lot of appointments with students from INT, and I'm sure BAS, now that it's here, just talking about here are my career goals. This is what I need to do in the short term. What might I want to do in the long term? We can build some action steps around internships or practicums there. And then finally, the third way to connect is our employer events. So Danny mentioned the adult learner career events. That's good for building community. But also if you go into your Handshake account or on our website, you're going to see that we bring 1,500 employers to campus every year. That's so many, and they all want to meet you. And some of those events are virtual. You can sign up for them through Handshake, but some of them are you're walking to class, the employer's in the hallway, you can talk to them 10 minutes. And we have a lot of internships that come out of those connections. So those are my 3 things about 3 things. And I wish everybody luck.
All right, I'm next. And I will just maybe add one thing on to Lisa's, which is also to say that if you are closer to one of our regional locations, there very often are also career events. I think Lisa was recently in
Yes.
Traverse City.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the virtual, but I also want to just say if you are in the area and have another advisor in a region you're working with, there are very well maybe opportunities for career support in person there. But
Yes.
virtual for everybody.
Oh, I was going to say, Danny has made a list of career fairs that happen around the state. I don't know if it's in the process of being updated for this year, but last year we did have that as well, that were tied to the regional centers.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I don't think I even knew until I was working in higher ed that a lot of times like Grand Valley's is open to community members as well. So it may be a little awkward to go to school that you don't attend to go to their career fair. But yeah, that's again a great place to make local connections because it's those local places that are gonna come to those career events. So our faculty have done such a good job of talking through some of the logistical pieces that advisors can help with. But I do just want to sort of reemphasize a few things and sort of really speak to how academic advisors can help you in the planning and execution of these courses. So as we mentioned, depending on the type of work that you'd like to do in the practicum, it may make sense to do it towards the beginning, middle, or end of your program. Again, if you're a little more exploratory and perhaps you're doing a project that will help you narrow down what you'd like to do for your area of focus, what you'd like to research, what you'd like to do for your capstone. It can be arranged that way. Justin suggested in the middle, which is also great to be sort of a bridge between the work you do in those classes. The other thing to just keep in mind too is that you know, we can plan this out so that, for example, I mean, both of our BAS and INT sections and the internship, it runs full term. So again, planning with us for when you take it means we can pair, for example, maybe a another course that we offer in a 15-week format, so they don't feel like you're taking a combination of accelerated classes and full-term classes where you're doing sort of different start and end dates. We also had a mention about, for example, financial aid. If you need to be in half-time or full-time enrollment to qualify for certain types of aid that you're using, again, we are always happy then to think about what other credits we're pairing with it so that we're appropriately sort of determining which section, how many credits of your practicum and internship that we're doing, so that we can help you meet those requirements as well. And again, the other thing to just remember is that this course can be taken in multiple iterations. So again, we could continue work or perhaps explore something else and apply that to another area of your degree audit. So that's something to certainly talk with us. One thing that I didn't hear mentioned that I will mention though too, you know, if you are working and planning to be enrolled in, for example, practicum or internship for multiple semesters, just keep in mind that that doesn't mean you have open-ended deadlines. You're still creating a plan for what you'll learn in that semester and meeting those goals, and then sort of setting the next set of goals for the next semester. So if you're doing a project where you are, for example, sort of eating an elephant one bite at a time, something to sort of keep in mind. And then again, if your plans change, if for example, you say, oh, we have a great internship opportunity that became available to me and those sorts of things, we can also move other classes around in your plan so that we can sort of accommodate and make sure that we get the coursework on the books that are associated with that opportunity. But it is just a good idea to let your advisor know or chat with them if you are making some of these changes, just to make sure again that we've got options to complete all your other requirements in a rotation, and that we are not throwing those off. So as I said, the Center for Adult and Continuing Studies works with our leads, our integrative study students online, as well as our 2 BAS majors, our Professional Innovation and Leadership and Business Fundamentals. We do have folks that work with our BAS students in the other 2 majors, and so those are listed here too, the Computing Advising Center and the Padnos College of Engineering, so that you can connect with them. And then as a reminder, our traditional in-seat students also do our practicum, but they work with advisors in Brooks. So this is the contact information to get connected with the advisor that is associated with your major. Okay, so just as a takeaway, so as a reminder, if you are in our integrative studies, you're going to be working with Dr. Denise Gorich. This is her contact information. Today you met Dr. Santos Ramos, and so his contact information in here. So just as a reminder, we're going to make connections with those faculty members to start talking about work plans. You will submit a work plan. Once you've worked through that conversation and reached an agreement, they will issue you the permit for the correct section that is associated with the right number of credits that you want to take, and then you are able to add that class afterwards. So that's the process. Again, a lot of times you can look on your plan, when am I planning on taking this class? Does that make sense? And then reaching out this semester before. All right, is there anything else that any of our faculty or partners would just like to add that was not included in the presentation? If not, I will end the recording and we will move over and give people opportunities to answer or ask questions. Okay,